So we've reached the end of section 2 and we're just wrapping up with a summary here. What we want to take a look at is what our learning goals were at the start of this section and what hopefully you've got an understanding of now. So we've implemented some very basic API functionality and we've used the .NET command line interface to create our application, and we've used it to create a solution file, and we've also used it to create a git-ignore file. So the .NET CLI is a very useful tool that we'll be using throughout the development of this application. If you're using Visual Studio or you're using Rider, you might prefer to use the built-in tools to run your project, and that's absolutely fine, but VS Code doesn't come with any tools like that, so we use the .NET command line interface to do so. We also took a look at API controllers and endpoints. Hopefully you've got an understanding now of the different parts of an API controller. An API controller inherits from a controller base class. An API controller has an API controller attribute, and an API controller has different endpoints. And we return action results from our API controllers. Now we'll be looking at API controllers in more detail throughout this course, so don't worry if you feel like we haven't covered every possible aspect of them just now. I could say the same about Entity Framework as well. We've barely scratched the surface just now, but we have installed Entity Framework and we have managed to get data from our database using LINQ queries, which then get translated into SQL code. We've also taken a look at the API project structure. We know how our application starts. We know the important classes that are involved in the starting of our API, the program class and the main method. And we've also taken a look and used configuration and environment variables. Well, not so much environment variables, but what we're storing our configuration in just now is the appsettings.development.json file. That's one of the places our API looks to get configuration from. And then to wrap up, we've saved our changes, the code that we've written, into source control, and we've pushed that on up to GitHub. And this wraps up section 2. What we're going to take a look at next is creating our client application in Angular, and we're going to take a look at getting our data from our API all the way into the client browser via our Angular code. And that's coming up next.